Okay. Now a little kerfuffle with all the phones here this evening. So let me go back. We've pledged allegiance. We've taken attendance. We are. Started.
There we go. I'll mute this.
We are.
Okay, let's mute this. And I think, hold on. Hello?
No, this is muted.
This is muted?
Is this one muted?
No, the handheld is muted.
Yeah.
I won't hear your voice.
Oh, because I thought this one will, because this is a participant now.
Yeah.
Hello? Can anyone hear me?
Yes.
I can hear you.
Oh, great. Okay. So not only do we have a new harbor master in Brian Leclerc, but he's also a technical whiz with the phone.
With that part.
So, Brian, welcome aboard. We're thrilled.
Welcome.
We're thrilled that you're with us and here, and the fun will begin shortly. So, is there anything you'd like to say? We're thrilled to have you, Brian. Any?
No, I just thank you all for your support in selecting me, and I'm looking forward to this. I think this will be a lot of fun, and it's a good thing.
Great, and we're very much looking forward to having you on board too. So we don't have minutes. We will have from September's meeting. We will have those at the next meeting. Moving ahead to the chairman's report. On September 27th, we wrote to Governor Lamont recommending Brian Leclerc to be our harbor master, along with two other candidates, John Dean and John Wynn. That same day, I had an email exchange with Kevin Zavoy of DEEP. As you recall, he has emailed in the past. He's concerned that there are illegal moorings along Fairfield coastline and is wondering whether or not we should have a deputy harbor master or the harbor master himself's jurisdiction should be extended to take care of, to monitor, to manage those illegal moorings. I reported to him that I had been down at Fairfield Beach, not a lot this summer, but the times that I was there, I noticed fewer than a dozen, maybe around 6 mooring buoys off Fairfield Beach, and frankly, it was hard to tell whether there were no boats attached to those moorings. It was hard to tell whether they were mooring buoys or whether they were lobster trap markings, and that's kind of where we've left it with Mr. Zavoy. As you recall, the history of this is that I believe the former harbor master had a conversation with Mr. Zavoy and had some concerns not only about illegal moorings off the coast, but he was concerned with illegal moorings up Pine Creek, both of which are now within DEEP's jurisdiction and not within our jurisdiction. So that's that issue. On September 12th, Jeff and I met with Justin Cathcart and Devin Santa down at Ye Yacht Yard. We walked around the dinghy dock, took a look at the lower wharf, and as a result, we have the proposal, which I forwarded all to you all late last week, and Devin and Steve Sternberg will join us when they're able. They're doing some training in New Jersey, and they will let us know when they're available this evening, hopefully during our meeting, to chat with us about the proposal. So that is my report. I guess we haven't heard from Devin or Steve at this point.
No, I had my phone. They said they would text.
Okay. So
they could. I also said if they're on the phone, they could just announce themselves.
Right.
On the call, so I'm assuming they're not.
Devin and Steve, are you there? Okay. So I think what we'll go ahead and do is move ahead to sand management, and we'll leave the discussion of the race proposal and the lower wharf until Devin and Steve can join us. So sand management, Mark and Jeff, anything to report?
Mark said he did not have any comments he wished to make. I'll make some comments. The Corps of Engineers project manager, Ms. Siligato, she went on a mission to New Orleans with the Corps of Engineers to supervise the construction of temporary housing after the storm. But she should be back, if not this week, then next week. And then we'll proceed to schedule a meeting to look at the site. And the harbor master will be involved with that. But we have provided the historical information that they asked for, about the history of the Southport Navigation Project and the jetty and the wall, and their real estate division will be involved, as we talked about at the last meeting, to determine ownership of the property that would be removed from the channel. That's, Mr. Harbor Master, that's a very interesting project, and we'll be proceeding with that with your assistance now.
Commissioners, any questions? Comments?
They're still there, right?
Yeah. Okay. Having heard no comments, let's move on to mooring committee.
The mooring committee has not met since the last monthly meeting of the commission. I've been away, and I plan to schedule a meeting in the next couple of weeks so that we'll have a little time between this meeting and the next mooring committee meeting.
Okay, great.
I'm
Question?
not aware of any urgent issues at this time of year.
Right. I think things are pretty quiet. Questions from commissioners? Okay. Rules and procedures. Jack?
On October 27th, the RTM unanimously voted via WebEx to enact the amendments that the Harbor Management Commission suggested to be made to the town code. And at that meeting, when they voted, they also thanked the Harbor Management Commission for our diligence in the process of aligning the town code with the Harbor Management Plan and the Rules and Procedures section of the Harbor Management Plan.
Great. Commissioners, questions?
Hi, this is Sam Cargill. Well
Hey,
done
Sam.
with the RTM. Were there any public comments?
Not a peep. The only comment was, thank you for your hard work from the RTM. And we said, you're welcome.
Great. Well done.
I think they were appreciative that we were there to bring the code up to speed so it aligned with other important guidance that we use.
Are you able to send me a copy of that? Either the red line or what was approved? Or is it on the website already?
No,
Have they
what's
put it-
approved is on the website.
It's on the website.
Is it
The
now?
town- The town website under the code, the town code.
I haven't been back to see. Have they posted it yet?
It was effective when you say September?
No, Betsy Brown told me they wait 2 weeks before they post
Oh,
it.
they put a quick, it's up then. Okay.
Yeah. So, commissioners, the good news is
All right,
that
everybody doing okay? We're just getting.
the good news is that the commission has been in front of the RTM four times in the last year and a half. And in order to get our plan updated, we're going to have to go back to them again. And so I'm very pleased that they know who we are. They know that we work hard. We have, at the end of the meeting in June, we forwarded on Jeff's June 2020 presentation to them. We forwarded on to them the survey that we. So all of them have had at least the opportunity to take a look at some of the work that we've done in the last couple of years. So hopefully, when we get there with the proposed new plan update, their learning curve will be short, and they will appreciate that we've been at this effort for a while. So all is good, I think. So questions, thoughts? Okay, the Plan Update Committee, we also have not met in several months. We are planning on meeting on October 28th at 4 o'clock, and continuing on with our effort to revise and update the plan. So we'll have a report at our November meeting on our latest effort.
Can you please give me the date of that meeting again?
Yeah, October 28th.
Thank you.
Anybody who'd like to come who hasn't come in the past, please let me know. More than welcome. And Devin and Steve, are you there yet? No? Okay.
I haven't heard from them either.
So let's move on to new business, which is the status and scope of our responsibility for managing the Lower Wharf. And Jeff has some learning for us.
I guess the purpose of this discussion is to consider a request that was made that the commission establish regulations for use of the Lower Wharf that would deal with people bringing dogs there. That's my understanding. And then we did some background research. This commission was, as we know, was instrumental in the acquisition of the property. A substantial amount of funds from the mooring fees were allocated towards the acquisition of the Lower Wharf property, and that followed an application by the owner of the property at that time to build a residential structure on that, and the town acquired the property. And the deed, and we worked in Attorney Saxel at the time, and the deed specifies that the Harbor Commission would be responsible for management of the property, which is a decision. The commission has never established regulations for use, and any sort of work or repair that's done there is through Public Works, and I don't know who makes the decision that the work should be done. There's also there's also the elevated pier that's here, which is in disrepair on the north part. And in fact, some years ago, the commission applied for or received a permit from DEEP to remove part of the north part of that structure. Oh, thank you. It extended farther in that direction. And the reason for removing it was the commission had plans and thought it would be a good idea to provide a facility for the community sailing program at the Lower Wharf. So all the dates of acquisition and the deed. We then proceeded to develop a plan that would involve public improvements from the boat ramp. And of course, this is managed by the Parks and Rec Commission, but from the boat ramp and including the pier and the wall and dredging in here. The first part of the work was done by placing planks, and the Public Works Department did that work in accordance with the permit that we had obtained from DEEP. The last two planks that are here are not at quite the correct angle, and the design calls for a final, I think it's the 12th plank that goes out there, and that wasn't put in because, well, the Public Works, they did a good job. They rented equipment and they did the work from the land, but the completion as it was designed was to be contingent on us dredging this area out to the channel. We received a grant from the Connecticut Port Authority several years ago to do this dredging work, but through no fault of our own, we were not able to do that because the work was conditioned by DEEP on our dredge material being capped with material from another dredging project, since the material was less than pristine. And over several years, there were no other projects in Long Island Sound that could serve as the cap for our project. And as a result, the permit included doing this work, repairing the wall, the boat ramp, and dredging. We initially included a proposal to build the community sailing dock as well, which was going to be off of this property, which the deed for the property allows. which was specifically put in there with the agreement of the Sasquatch Group, which has a role in providing comments for management. But we removed the community sailing dock from consideration because when we did soil borings or subsurface borings, we ran into ledge here, so that the cost of doing that was going to be unproductive or not good value. But anyway, the permit expired, and we for several years, and this has gone on for a number of years, but for several years after we got the permit, we were able to renew it. Deep ran out of the renewal opportunities, so we have to apply for a whole new permit now. And in addition to having the concerns about the availability of another dredging project to serve as the cap, there are now, this is probably Devin Santa, but it's not. I'm sorry to keep that on, it's just he said that they would text when they were free. But in addition, there are other issues affecting Long Island Sound dredge material now that are imposed by New York State. So it was Mr. Santa and Race Engineering's understanding that if we were to get a new permit for dredging here, it would cost maybe another $40,000 to $50,000 just for additional sediment costs, which would again make this quite a expensive operation. And we've spent so much money on permitting and engineering and having accomplished. So our thought was that perhaps we don't apply for everything again. We apply just for the replacement and the repair of the elevated pier and for repairs along the wall. So that's our Lower Wharf project. At the same time, I believe it's this property here. Several years ago, we were involved in a we call a property swap, where this property owner swapped his ownership of the beach above the mean high water line to the town, and in exchange, there was an easement, a public access easement that ran from Harbor Road along the side here out to the property, and that was. I'm going on too much about all this stuff. Let me know, but that was the result of that easement of a conflict some years ago between the town and the former owner of this property. And the town was arguing that the property on this side of the road was town owned, and the property owner was saying no, it's privately owned, and that went to court. But an agreement was reached outside of the before the judge made a decision that the town agreed that this was privately owned, but that the town would have a public access easement along this side so that people could get to the water. The easement was not really that functional because it included this riprap. And then when the present owner of the property, and I'm not reading from notes, so I'm probably missing some of the things here, but when the present owner of the property purchased the property, he was concerned about the use of this piece of property, the upland part of the property by the public, and also use of people going over the private land to get down to this beach area, which he owned. So in exchange for eliminating that access easement over part of the property here, the property owner swapped or gave to the town this beach area. And then there were some other agreements. And this was a matter of much discussion here because it was an action affecting the property adjoining the harbor. The commission had a role in reviewing it and had a number of questions, including who was going to be responsible for managing the property. And it seemed logical that the commission would be, the commission would be responsible because it owns or manages the Lower Wharf. And that may be Mr. Santa, if you excuse me. Yes, it is.
Okay.
So he's saying, I am on the call now. So should we finish this discussion and get, I don't know what their time period.
Yeah, we don't. Devin and Steve?
Yeah, you got us here.
Are you driving for a while, or do you have a limited window?
We're driving for a while.
The only reason I ask is that we're about halfway through a discussion of our responsibility for other parts of the lower wharf. And,
Okay.
if you don't mind waiting till we finish that would be great.
Okay. Yeah, we'll mute ourselves and stand by.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
So an action by the RTM was necessary to achieve this property swap. And also, by the Board of Selectmen and the Historic District Commission. And the property owner, without getting into all the details, and I will use this pointer again, the property owner had originally proposed to build a vertical wall to protect that property, to protect the property. But the agreement, and Sasquatch was quite actively involved in this, and we have a number of documents that they submitted. But the idea of a vertical wall outside of this riprap was not, in terms of changing the character of the property and also exposure of erosion. So the understanding was that the property owner would remove that riprap, build a wall where the riprap, ends, and then put the riprap back so as not to change the appearance of the property. This is all as I understand it. So it required approvals from, again, the RTM, and we've looked at their minutes, and the Board of Selectmen and the Historic District Commission. And our questions were, the Harbor Commission expressed no objection to this property swap, pending the town attorney providing information on who's responsible for managing it, and there were some other questions in our correspondence. But we never heard back from them. But when you look at the deed now, it seems pretty clear that the deed for this property makes clear that the Harbor Commission is responsible for managing that property. And now we have the request, and I believe it's on behalf of, it was submitted by the attorney representing that property owner.
Right.
To consider regulations for the use of the property. Now, we never really understood what type of category that the property is, because it's not open space, because open space is managed by the Conservation Commission. It's not a park, so and is it considered a town beach, because there is the sandy beach there. So I think we've asked, and then there was also the question, Sasquatch had some objections to the plan that was before the Historic District Commission. So the last minutes of the Historic District Commission that we could find, the applicant asked for approval to do certain things on this side of the road and also on this side. And those minutes, and I'll give you the date, the Historic District Commission did not approve work on the water side. So whether something subsequent to that has happened, but we've asked the town attorney to provide an update of the status of the whole matter before considering any sort of regulations for use of the property. There's also, and there's a number of things. We viewed people using the property when we went to the town boatyard to discuss the revised proposal for the larger project, and observed a number of people parking at the town boatyard and walking down Harbor Road to enjoy both the lower wharf and that beach area. So it's clearly it's an enjoyable place for people to go to, and that was the intent of acquiring it in the first place. And if we can redo that, it will further enhance the potential use of this property for public use and enjoyment. I'm sorry, I'm rambling on here. We have the dates and the correspondence and the backup of all this.
So I believe at our last meeting, Betty was frantically texting that she, I guess, had seen the deed, but we had not, and had seen that the original deed restrictions to the first piece of Lower Wharf property are now contained in the second deed, correct?
There are two separate deeds.
Right, but
There's reference, the second deed for the property that was swap, that includes conditions that were in the first deed.
in the first deed, so.
Including the condition about the Harbor Commission being the responsible
Right,
entity for managing.
Right.
Jeff, do you recall when that property swap occurred and that easement then was, I guess, relieved from the upper portion?
2019.
If there was any discussion around how that beach would be accessed when the easement was released?
I'm gonna use my memory for this, but as I recall, the property owner had agreed that to provide steps on the south side of the lower wharf, so that the access would be through the lower wharf, not, that was the whole idea of it,
Right.
not through that upland property on the old easement.
Right.
But that the access would be, that we did not see, that there would be steps that were built down.
You can't get things in the way. The board.
And then one of the questions that we had asked of the town attorney to address prior to the finalization of the deal was do the requirements of the Americans with Disabilities Act apply to this property? We never had an answer to that.
But yeah, it was to bypass people walking over the riprap. That was the steps were to
Right.
make it safer for people to access.
Right.
Those steps are not there now.
Right.
There are no steps, and the riprap is, like, I mean, you could really do a job on your ankle.
Right.
The Historic District Commission met on November 14th, 2019, to consider this. And based on reading these minutes, they did not approve any work that the applicant had requested on the water side of Harbor Road. So whether something has happened since then, I don't know. But I know Sasquatch had issues right up until that Historic District Commission meeting.
So the use issue that we've been made aware of relates to the degree to which and the ways in which people are exercising their dogs on the sandy beach and on the area around there, and whether that's proper, and what rules are going to pertain to dog
Right.
use of this area.
Right,
So,
right.
including boaters who are concerned about dogs who have been swimming out into the channel with things thrown into the channel to get the dogs to go swimming. So
Right.
there's
Right.
safety issues and also health
Right.
issues, I guess,
Right.
folks are raising.
Right.
And just a couple things. The town acquired the Lower Wharf property in 1999. And the Superior Court proceeding having to do with the ownership of that property preceded that, the agreement outside of the court, that was 1995.
So one of the questions that we were asked is, were there ever signs about dogs down there? And I don't know. Somebody told me there was a sign at one point that said dogs must be on the leash, but I've never seen it. And clearly, when you're down there, dogs are not on the leash. And the other concerns that we had were people were not picking up after their dogs. I guess we had a picture from the attorney showing somebody launching a little plastic boat off that little beach. So I guess the next step.
What
Yep.
property type is the lower wharf designated as?
I'm sorry, what's the question, Doug?
The lower wharf is designated as what property type?
I don't think we know.
I
Or it's not
don't
designated?
I don't believe it is. We don't know. That was one of our questions, but we've never received an answer to that. So if it was park property, it would be the responsibility of the Parks and Recreation Commission, and if it was open space, it would be the responsibility of the Conservation Commission, as we understand it. But this is the responsibility of this commission, so what does that make it?
So I think the next step is a call to the town attorney to see, kind of where we stand and, for some guidance.
So that at least we know what we're responsible for.
Right, and how, and what we have to do, yeah.
Well, also, what's the status of the stairs, which is a safety issue here, so
Right.
that was committed to, so what's happening with that?
What's happening with that, yeah, exactly.
Jeff, I can ask one other question. When you were talking about the dredging permit, you had referenced some additional costs. Was that because of additional sediment that's come in all this time from the permitting, or is the additional cost because of cap material that would be required?
Well, Mr. Santa, they can be more precise on that, but my understanding is that, well, there's been a dispute between Connecticut and New York for a number of years having to do with the disposal of dredge material in Long Island Sound. And as a result of an agreement reached between the two states, projects in Connecticut require New York State to sign off on them. Not the federal projects, but projects for private dredging, like a boat club or like our project. But we got the permission for this project before that agreement took place. Now that agreement is in place, and New York State is requiring additional testing requirements for projects now. We were ahead of that, but then the permit expired.
So that $40,000 is testing?
Yes. And that's testing, it's not just the chemicals and grain size, it's toxicity testing that New York State is requiring. But that, our, Mr. Santa and Mr. Sternberg can mention that, but that was the substantial added cost that we would incur now if we were to proceed with getting another permit to dredge it. And is it worth it? Especially given that we probably don't have enough money in our grant to cover both the new sampling and testing and the new permitting and the actual work. So what would be the benefit that we would gain by doing that, and where we could get the funds from?
The only thing that I had heard was that there was going to be more funds available through the state.
And I mentioned that too, that we expect another round of these small harbor grants to be available in the hopefully not too distant future. So conceivably, we could apply for additional funds to do the work. When we discussed this with the administrator of those funds at the Connecticut Port Authority, his initial reaction was the value to be gained isn't equal to the amount of money that you'd be spending to get the permit. But that's a discussion that we had, not anything formal.
So why don't I commit by the next meeting to call the town attorney for some guidance on the issue of what our responsibilities are vis-a-vis the Lower Wharf. And since we have Steve and Devin available, why don't we go back to our first item of old business, which is the Lower Wharf, and our visit to Jeff and I, Justin Cathcart, met with Devin down there at the Lower Wharf on the 12th, I guess it was, and or the day before. And as a result, we have the proposal from Race to do some work down there that does not include the dredging for the boat ramp. Devin, Steve?
Yes, Carolyn. We're here.
Great, thank you.
Can you hear us?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. I think Jeff Stedman summarized the situation well with respect to dredging. There's a lot of complications that have come into the scene since it was last authorized, and right now it would be, I think, a lot of money for a little gain. And one of the things that probably a lot of people don't realize is even at the best of times, cost-wise, with the sediment testing, we still had a project that didn't dredge the entirety of the areas under the docks because of the limitations the state of Connecticut put on us. So I think to reconsider a project that could be a public benefit of that area that wouldn't include dredging is perhaps a prudent course of action at this point.
So I pointed out on Jeff's picture the area that wouldn't be dredged on the boat ramp. That wouldn't be.
If the docks are shaped like a U, it would cut about halfway through the vertical legs of the U. Would be the limit of the dredging.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that led us kind of inform the discussion we had on site with Mr. Cathcart of, is there another use, if the money could be repurposed, what direction would it be repurposed towards? And that had our discussion head towards the fishing pier, or the timber pier structure, and repairs to the masonry wall. That may be a prudent project with a meaningful public gain.
So Commissioners, one of the things that Justin said was that if you buy a boat ramp launching permit, it gives you access to all 3 launch ramps in town. So it's not as if that this is the only place that people can launch from. There are two other choices in town, in any event. So, given the huge increase in costs, just didn't seem, and the minimal maybe 1 hour difference that the tide would make in terms of people being able to get their boat out at dead low tide. It just didn't seem that all that money was a good use. It didn't seem to be a good use of all that money. So as a result, we have the raise proposal before us.
If I can just interrupt?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I just texted my wife. She's on the Board of Finance. Because I remember her telling me that she thought some of this ARPA funding, the federal money, has been approved for use on that wooden fishing pier by the town under this. Yeah. She brought that up when we were just motoring out a few weeks back, saying she saw that on the town plan. So I think
well, that would be wonderful.
You might have had that problem solved already. Or the money's been committed for, the millions of dollars the town got from ARPA or the COVID money.
The COVID money.
And that was one of the proposals, which you may want to confirm that.
Yes, that was in their proposal. Because we talked about that with Mr. Hurley, the town engineer, and he mentioned that monies through that program were allocated for repairing the bulkhead at Perry Green, but he didn't say anything about the pier here.
The lower wharf, yeah. Right, he did.
So we need to.
I asked her, was the town using the ARPA money on the pier in Southport, where we like walking with the dog? Because I like walking along there. She said yes.
Great.
I think so. I think you might look into that.
Great.
You might have a question to ask.
That is a good question to ask.
Because free up some money for you guys.
But we have before us the raise proposal.
Which we need to do no matter what, where the money comes for construction.
Right.
We need the permit.
We need the permit.
Yeah, no permit, no construction.
Right? So any questions for Devin or Steve about the proposal? Commissioners?
My only question about this, clearly the cost that you propose for doing this work makes sense to me. I'm wondering if there are risks that we should be aware of, not about this part, but about the follow-on activities. Are there any risks or possible threats to being able to execute the work that we need to think about that will happen after we've expended $12,000 on this work? I'm just trying to anticipate what could possibly go wrong so that we don't get challenged in the future about spending $12,000 on something that potentially could blow up on us. And so what are the risks about proceeding with this?
I talked with Mr. Salvatore at the Connecticut Port Authority, which provided the grant for the dredging part of this work, and told him that he gave us, it was his opinion that spending the additional testing money wasn't equal value to the dredging project. But the funds that we do have for this work now, maybe there's additional funds that are available too, but the funds that we do have were allocated specifically for dredging, and they were allocated by the Connecticut Bond Commission. So we'd have to repurpose those monies to go into the work on the pier itself and on the wall. Now, Mr. Salvatore said, don't, go ahead and do it. But I think we should have some sort of a formal communication with the Connecticut Port Authority saying that this is what we intend to do. with how we intend to repurpose that grant to make sure it's.
You don't want them coming back on you.
And take,
Exactly.
yeah, well, we gave you the grant for dredging and you're using it for something else. It's part of the same project that the dredging was part of, but I think we need to have in my opinion, formal communication with the Connecticut Port Authority on the use of those funds.
I totally.
And if there are monies available through the COVID money, then we'll have funds that we could use for something else maybe. Because we talked about also applying for funds through the Port Authority for the engineering and permitting of the Perry Green Wall. But the question is the timing for that. I think the town is ready to move forward quicker on that project than we would be able to get money from the Port Authority for engineering. But anyway,
How about the actual performance of the work? So I have no expertise at all in this topic. So in taking on redoing a wall like this, facing the sea, and rebuilding a pier that's very old now, are there risks around the surprises that you can uncover in the course of doing those kinds of projects that is surprising?
Yeah, Jack. I think yeah, we'd all be wise to understand there's construction is fraught with risks, and even if we step back from construction, the regulatory realm has some risks too. Potentially non-permitting or conditions that maybe would be imposed. As far as the conditions go, there is some factors to understand. This has been permitted before, so that's it gives us some confidence that it would be permitted again. So hopefully those permitting risks could be minimized. The construction risks, a lot of them are the unknown, unforeseen conditions below ground. We did soil test borings a while ago associated with driving the piles for the pier. We understand there's rock ledge that's more pronounced to the north side than there is to the south. But until we actually put piles in the ground, achieving adequate embedment will be somewhat a risk until the piles are in the ground. But we've done measures to date to check those risks. Seawall project.
You're saying that the length of the north extension could be limited if we encountered ledge?
Yeah, and we had some back and forths because it was originally a T-head shape, and then the decking was stripped off the northern portion, so it's currently an L-head shape.
Right.
We re-permitted it as a T-head, but then we went through and did the soil test borings and found out that as we get north, it's going to be more difficult and perhaps more costly to construct, associated with maybe drilling, not driving piles. So we ended up putting together bid documents that kind of almost had an either or, and I think it was the base bid was an L head and the ad alternate was the T head. So those components have been pretty reasonably mitigated, I think. Again, until the piles start going to the ground, there are always unknowns. But I think we're in a reasonable position on that.
One other consideration that I don't know that it's reasonable to think about, but our original design for the improvement of the boat launching land had a floating dock that would go along the side here, piece of the facility, and neighbors objected to that. So we removed that from the design. Here we're proposing to build back something that we had a permit for before, but in the public comment period, you anticipate someone making a complaint that would attract more people to the, you don't know what would happen in the public comment period. I think that would be unreasonable because it's replacing what historically was there, not just previously permitted.
And making it safe.
Yeah.
Okay, that's helpful.
Yeah, I think, Jeff, you're right. I mean, once it goes to permitting and it's in the public eye, Who knows? And people have been commenting negatively on piles or other view impacts that weren't there prior. So reconstruction of the T-head, the L-head to a T-head may have an issue, and people saying it hasn't been that case for some time. And as far as the walls go, that's another unknown, Jack. If we're to get there and be excavating behind the walls, what we may find. But we hadn't really conceptualized a significant project in the walls. It was more of a replacement of the cap, a repair of the cap. But that assessment was based at looking at that wall, probably over 10 years ago now. So part of our effort would be looking at the wall and figuring whether it should be a more, whether we do any more project than that.
So the yacht club recently was embarking on work on the wall at the yacht club, right? And you encountered challenges with that wall. Is the kind of challenges that arose at the yacht club similar to the risks that we could face here in this wall?
Yep. I don't
know anything about this topic, so I'm just asking questions.
I don't know what the status of the yacht club's project with the wall is. So I can't comment on that per se, but so yeah, there's gonna be a nose, but I don't think there's gonna be a big project with a full wall replacement out there.
Okay.
Commissioners, any other questions for Steve or Devin? So we have this proposal before us. What would you like to do? Would you like to approve it? Would you like to, I see some heads nodding here. Those of you on the phone, any?
Would you want to accept it or approve it contingent on confirmation from the Connecticut Port Authority that we can repurpose the funds that were initially provided for dredging purposes to construct what we get the permit for now?
Because the alternative is we need to get another small harbors permit.
We need to get another
grant.
Well, we have the money, they gave us the money is in the bank.
Got it. I mean, but if they say you can't reuse it for this purpose, do we need to apply for another grant first?
I can't, well.
It's another risk question.
Yeah, it is another risk question, and the final risk question I'll throw out there is that the town purchasing director has told me that we have to go and get permission not to competitively bid this. We need the first selectwoman to sign off on this, and the purchasing director. So we have a couple of contingencies here, but we certainly
to accept the proposal though, if you chose to, and then go to the selectmen for permission to do this to a sole source.
Right.
I can't imagine that it would make sense to hire, obtain someone else.
I can't imagine that we would run into headwinds. And I can't imagine that if the Port Authority is saying to you informally that we can go ahead and use the money, that in a written letter, they would change their mind. But I think to be responsible, we should ask both the Port Authority and the town fathers and mothers to go ahead and give us the blessing. But pass, hopefully, I would suggest that we pass it at this meeting, contingent upon those two approvals, and then we can go ahead and spend the month till November 15th actively pursuing those two contingencies.
I would agree.
Okay.
Me too.
Commissioners on the phone? Any thoughts, suggestions, ideas?
Yes, this is Eric. I think it's a great idea. I think we should move forward with this. I've, for the last easy 15 years, have had discussions with people regarding the seawall there, and also, improving the wharf so that it's, 100% usable for the public in a better way. But the seawall is, continues to erode, and it definitely needs to be patched up, no question about it, for a long time now. So if there's a way we can get it done, take a look at how much this costs and see what ways we can make it happen, I support it.
Great. Thank you, Eric. So can I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to proceed with the race, subject to the approval of the DEEP as far as giving us the ability to transfer the project to doing this.
You mean Connecticut Port Authority?
Connecticut Port Authority.
And the
Writing.
Connecticut,
Writing, yeah.
and the sole source purchase waiver would be the town document that we have to, town approval that we need.
This is for the engineering work, this is the sole source, is that?
Right, but we're not competitive, yes, it's for the, it's for the race proposal.
Got it, yep,
So,
to agree to that.
Right.
Non-competitive.
right. So we have a proposal, we have a motion to proceed with the race proposal, subject to approval from the Connecticut Port Authority and getting the waiver of a public bid from the town. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Jack is seconding it. Any discussion? Any questions? Any other thoughts? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Great. Excellent. We have a plan, we have a proposal. Terrific.
Great. Well, thanks, commissioners. Thanks, Chairwoman. We'll be standing by for any direction based on those two contingencies you noted.
Great, Devin.
Thank you.
Thank you, and Stephen, I hope there's no traffic.
Good luck.
Unlikely that'll be the case. We're still down at the oil terminal in Linden right now, so.
Read me up, Scotty.
Yeah, once that's invented would be good.
Yeah, it sure would. Thank you very much.
Appreciate you letting us call in. That was very helpful for us, and looking forward to improving that facility. It's a special place, and a real honor to be a part of it.
Great. We'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Yep, You're very welcome. Thank you.
Madam Chairman, I did some research while we were on the phone. The final approved ARPA package has the money for Perry's Green bulkhead, $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
Perry's Green, okay, yeah.
Just Perry's Green.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it just said, it talked about Perry's Green, and it wants to, the purpose of the project is to replace the existing bulkhead with a new bulkhead that will secure the park area from erosion. The tide gate structure across the street is in poor condition. Looks like they're going to be fixing that as well.
Great.
The flap gates are not functioning because the gates are hitting the sidewall. It says Tavern Brook, is that what's in the bucket? Yeah.
That's $1 million, right?
That's $1 million. Horse Tavern Brook tide gate structure is going to be part of it too. It's $1 million, so it depends if, how that comes out in the budget.
Great.
Where it can extend to.
Great. Lots of new bulkheads and walls down there, finally. I mean, that was what our survey showed, was a big concern that people had, was that those walls needed to be repaired.
If the schedule allows for it, we have the opportunity to apply for a grant, Harry mentioned, from the Port Authority for the engineering and permitting for this. But it depends on whether they may be way ahead of the.
Right, but you'll be in contact with Bill Hurley about.
I talked with Bill Hurley about it. Great.
Yeah, although I think that was just approved in the last 2 weeks.
This money, just.
Yeah, I don't know how far ahead they'd really be.
Right. When we were there, when we were at the RTM, they scrambled the agenda so we could appear before they took that up. Yeah, so it's not much more than 2 weeks ago. Yeah.
Exactly right.
So Members of the public, any comment? No? Any new business? Commissioners, any new business? Any other new business?
Some
Jeff?
old business, is that,
Oh, that's fine too.
the aquarium issue, which the commission spent a good deal of time reviewing the aquarium permit for the water diversion, mostly from the Hemlocks Reservoir System, which drains into the Mill River. And so Aquarian Water Company, which is part of Eversource, interestingly, they applied for a permit to divert up to 14+ million gallons a day from the Hemlock system to go to Southwest Connecticut. And now I think they're approved up to about 7 million or so gallons per day. And we expressed concern about the potential impact of that diversion downstream on Cricker Brook, which flows into the Mill River. And we wrote several, I thought, thoughtful letters.
Very good letters.
And so this is a subject to a DEP public hearing, because there was a petition filed by the town, actually, to have the public hearing. Went through the public hearing. Intervening parties included the Fair Plan Group and the Middle River Wetland Group, as well as the town. The hearing officer, after hearing all of the comments, has prepared a proposed final decision. This was last month, essentially approving everything that Aquarian wanted, and for a period of 25 years. Now, I talked with the Fair Plan people today and the attorney representing them. I did not talk with anyone in the town attorney's office, but they did. So as I understand it, the town has filed what they call exceptions. I don't know exactly what that means, to the hearing officer's decision, which now would lead to oral arguments for the DEP. In effect, appealing, if that's the right word, the hearing officer's proposed final decision. And I don't believe there's any room for any provision anymore for public comments. But one thing that struck my mind is that in the proposed final decision, there's reference to the written comments provided by such groups as Trout Unlimited and the Fairfield Harbor Management Commission. And it goes on to say that the applicant responded to these and other comments and questions received. Doesn't address the comments directly. But in a footnote, the hearing officer writes that the comments of the Harbor Management Commission are not binding recommendations. See Cohen versus DEP. That's the case that we were concerned about in Superior Court earlier this year, that unexpectedly and unreasonably concluded that the Harbor Commission doesn't have any authority to make recommendations to DEP on DEP permits. That's being appealed by the town of Greenwich now, which they hope to take it to the Supreme Court. We have motions from a number of harbor management commissions supporting legislative clarification to make clear that harbor commissions do have the long-standing. If we didn't, for example, the Exide project was an example of where we used that recommendation, but the judge, I'm not quite sure why, ruled in an opposite direction. To not dismiss the commission's recommendation. Also just received, and we talked about this with two of Fairfield's legislators, McCarthy and also Senator Long. And recently, the West Haven Harbor Commission received a letter from one of its state legislators expressing her willingness to assist in crafting a legislative amendment, not to veto state affairs. It's clear that the commissions have the authority to review comments by DEP. So, in any event, again talking on, but this case is an example. With the Exide project, we use the argument that it affects Southport Harbor and it has to be consistent with the harbor management plan. You follow the reasoning in that case, they would say, you know what, we don't have any authority. So that's something that we have to pursue. We'll continue to pursue.
And I believe at the time that the shortly after the Cohen decision, that this commission moved to support.
Yes, so we have those motions from a number of commissions.
Good, okay.
But anyway, there's nothing more to do about, I don't believe, this Aquarian project, except be
Wait and hope.
interested in what happens.
Yeah. Commissioners, any thoughts or comments of Aquarian or the Cohen decision? Anybody, anything? Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn? Harry moves. Can I have a second? Jack seconds. We are adjourned until November 16, I believe, or thereabouts. Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Good night. Thank you. Good night.
Yep.